US President Donald Trump's tariff deadline is inching closer. The world is keeping a very close watch. Today, India and the United States began a fresh round of negotiations. The Assistant Trade Representative, Brendan Lynch, is here in the national capital. Top government sources told CNN News18 that over the next 3 days, both sides will be focusing on setting the framework for a structured negotiation. Finalizing the terms of reference will be a key agenda in this round of talks. Both sides are hoping to establish some kind of a roadmap and a timeline for negotiating a bilateral trade agreement. Remember, when Prime Minister Modi had visited the White House in February, both leaders had agreed that they will conclude a bilateral trade agreement as early as possible, possibly before the end of this year. The first tranche of that BTA will be about laying the groundwork for future negotiations, with completion of the BTA expected by the fall of this year, when Donald Trump is expected to be here in Delhi to attend the Quad Leaders Summit. The United States is looking to engage with India. It's a very, very different approach that Donald Trump has taken when it comes to Canada or Mexico or China, where there's a great degree of animosity. He's already imposed or threatened to impose 25% tariffs on both Canada and Mexico. He's already imposed 10% tariffs on China, and he is trying to take a different sort of approach as far as India is concerned. So as trading partners, some of America's biggest trading partners are scrambling to secure some kind of an exemption or a carve-out out of the tariffs. The US president has got everybody guessing. This time he has signaled that he plans to limit the exceptions to his tariffs, the reciprocal tariffs, which will kick in from the 2nd of April. This was just 24 hours after he said that there will be a great degree of leeway and exemption. So clearly, Trump is also blowing hot and blowing cold. Let's try and see if we can listen in to what Trump said. All right. The United States. So here are the 3 or 4 areas or the sectors where the United States wants India to reduce its tariffs. 150% is the tariff that India charges on alcohol. Of course, bourbon whiskey, India had reduced that to 100%, but Mr. Trump and his administration want that to be reduced even further. There's up to 100% tariffs on agricultural products. Remember, this is being done to try and protect the Indian farmers, the Indian agricultural community. The Trump administration wants that down as well. And certain automobile components too, it goes all the way up to 100%. Just recently, the duties on electric vehicles have been reduced from 115% down to 15% if the EV manufacturer manufactures in India and sets up a plant worth $500 million. Let's listen in to my colleague Pallavi Ghosh, who's decoding what India can expect from the Trump tariffs and how, and if at all, there is a way for India to circumvent it.
As we are all aware, the new tariff policy of America is going to come into effect from 2nd of April. And there have been a lot of worries as far as the Indian economy is concerned, and of course many of the world economies who engage with America as to what really could be the impact on them. Well, India has made it very clear that it wants to actively engage with America. And that is why over the next 3 days, while the American delegation is over here, the terms of reference are going to be negotiated. Indian government has made it very clear that we are not going to see ourselves as being on a back foot. It's going to be a positive discussion between both the sides. On some issues, India is ready to give relief to America in terms of tariff. But largely over issues, there is going to be a one-on-one discussion which is going to take place, and this terms of reference discussion between America and India is very different from the kind of engagement which America is going to have with other countries like China, Mexico, where there's a kind of trade war which is taking place. Remember, the Prime Minister and the American President actually shared a very warm and good relationship, and that is going to be one of the important factors in why these tariff talks are expected to be in a very good condition. Now let's look at some very quickly on some of the aspects on which this discussion is going to take place. They're going to decide on the schedule and the timeline of talks as far as the BTA is concerned, which is of course the trade negotiations. Apart from that, they are going to finalize the terms of reference for tranche 1 talks, and also by autumn the level of tranche 2 talks which are going to take place. So this is essentially the kind of negotiations which are going to take place. However, government sources have made it very clear to us that this kind of reciprocal relief for each other is going to be bilateral, which means if India is going to give certain amount of concessions to America, it doesn't mean that it's going to give similar concessions if a similar demand is being made by other countries like the EU or any other France or any other European countries are concerned. The benchmark behind this is a good equations between America and India, and also the personal good equations between Donald Trump as well as the Prime Minister Modi, and negotiations and maneuvering is going to take place as far as the terms of reference are concerned, but we are certainly not going to be seen under any pressure or on a back foot.
So the big question is, will India concede to wooing Trump and try and hope that there will be some concessions that will be made? Now, here's what we have learned, and this is Reuters is also reporting this, that India is open to cutting its tariffs on 55%, more than half of US imports to the value of something like $23 billion annually. India is ready to cut cut the import duty on many of these American exports in a bid to try and save the trade relationship. India will see tariff hike from 6 to 10% for key US exports. However, India's tariff cut and the offer to cut for about half of the American imports into India will solely hinge on whether there is going to be relief from the reciprocal tariffs that Trump is threatening from the 2nd of April.